My name is Rachel Martinez, and I'm 28 years old. Last Saturday, I watched my sister's dream wedding venue transform into a military obstacle course with mud, barbed wire, and drill sergeants screaming commands. The irony, I'm the one who made it happen. You see, when Sarah kicked me out of her wedding for stealing her thunder, she had no idea I owned the venue through my company. What started as sibling rivalry became the most satisfying revenge I've ever served cold. This is how family betrayal taught me that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. Before we dive into this wild family revenge story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama stories. Trust me, you won't believe how this wedding disaster unfolded and the sweet justice that followed. Growing up, Sarah and I were inseparable. She was 3 years older, and I idolized everything about her: her confidence, her perfect grades, even the way she could make our parents laugh with just a look. Our family always called us the dynamic duo, and I genuinely believed we'd be best friends forever. That naive belief lasted until I turned 25 and started my own business. After serving 4 years in the Army as a logistics coordinator, I returned home to Phoenix with a clear vision. Using my military connections and the discipline I'd learned, I founded Desert Rose Events, a company specializing in outdoor venue management and event coordination. What started as a small operation quickly grew into something substantial. Within 2 years, I owned 3 properties around Arizona, including a stunning desert venue called Sunset Ridge that could accommodate up to 300 guests. The venue was my pride and joy. Nestled in the Sonoran Desert with breathtaking mountain views, Sunset Ridge featured natural stone formations, carefully maintained desert landscaping, and a rustic charm that made it perfect for weddings. I'd invested everything into making it special: custom lighting, a state-of-the-art sound system, and even a small chapel I'd built from reclaimed wood. It was booked solid for the next 18 months. Sarah, meanwhile, had followed a more traditional path. She'd married her college boyfriend Tom right after graduation and had been working as a marketing manager for a pharmaceutical company. Their marriage seemed picture perfect from the outside: suburban house, 2 cars, yearly vacations to Europe. But I started noticing cracks when Tom began making snide comments about my playing soldier during family dinners. The first real sign of trouble came during Christmas dinner last year. Our extended family was gathered at our parents' house in Scottsdale, and the conversation naturally turned to my growing business. I was excited to share that Desert Rose Events had been featured in Arizona Wedding Magazine and that bookings were through the roof. "Rachel's become quite the entrepreneur," our Aunt Linda said, beaming with pride. I saw the magazine spread. "That venue is absolutely gorgeous." I felt my cheeks flush with happiness as relatives passed around their phones showing each other photos from my website. Uncle Mike, a retired businessman himself, was particularly interested in my expansion plans. "You know, Rachel," he said thoughtfully, "if you ever consider franchising or need investors, I'd love to discuss it." This kind of success in the events industry is rare. That's when I noticed Sarah's expression. Her smile had frozen in place and her knuckles were white where she gripped her wine glass. Tom's face had darkened considerably. "It's really not that impressive," Tom interjected with a bitter laugh. "Anyone can rent out a patch of desert and call it a venue. It's not like she's running a real business." The table fell silent. My father's face hardened. He'd been incredibly proud of my military service and entrepreneurial success. My mother looked mortified. "Tom," my dad said quietly, "Rachel built that business from nothing. She deserves respect for what she's accomplished." But the damage was done. Sarah didn't defend me. She just sat there, staring at her plate while her husband dismissed years of my hard work as if it were nothing. That night marked the beginning of what I now realize was Sarah's growing resentment. Over the following months, I noticed subtle changes in our relationship. Sarah stopped asking about my business. When I'd share exciting news, like landing a celebrity wedding or expanding into corporate events, she'd change the subject quickly. She began making passive-aggressive comments about how some people got lucky with timing and connections. The breaking point came 6 months later when Sarah announced her engagement to her new boyfriend Marcus. Apparently, she'd been having an affair and had left Tom the previous fall. News she'd somehow neglected to share with the family until the divorce was finalized. Marcus was everything Tom wasn't: charming, successful, and from a wealthy Phoenix family that owned several restaurant chains. Their whirlwind romance had progressed quickly, and now they were planning an elaborate wedding for the following spring. "I want something absolutely spectacular," Sarah gushed during a family dinner, showing off her massive engagement ring. "Marcus's family knows everyone in Phoenix society, so this wedding needs to be perfect. We're thinking May, maybe at the Phoenician Resort or one of those exclusive country clubs." I was genuinely excited for her. Despite our recent tension, I wanted my sister to be happy. "Sarah, that sounds amazing. You know, if you're interested, Sunset Ridge would be perfect for a spring wedding. The desert blooms are incredible in May, and I could give you the family discount." The offer came from my heart. I imagined walking her down the aisle in the chapel I'd built, seeing her married, surrounded by the natural beauty I'd worked so hard to preserve and enhance. It would be a chance to rebuild our relationship and share something meaningful. Sarah's expression shifted from excitement to something cold and calculating. "Oh, Rachel, that's sweet, but we're looking for something more upscale, more prestigious. Marcus's family expects a certain level of sophistication." The words stung, but I tried to brush it off. "Of course, I understand. Just thought I'd offer." But Tom, who'd apparently reconciled with Sarah long enough to attend family dinners, couldn't resist twisting the knife. "No offense, Rachel, but your little desert plot isn't exactly Four Seasons material. Sarah deserves better than some rustic cowboy theme." This time Sarah didn't just stay silent. She nodded in agreement. Looking back now, I realize that moment was when our relationship truly fractured. It wasn't just about the venue. It was about respect, family, loyalty, and the fact that Sarah had chosen to align herself with people who diminished my accomplishments rather than celebrating them. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of a betrayal that would ultimately teach me that sometimes the people who should support you the most are the ones who will hurt you the deepest. The months leading up to Sarah's wedding were a masterclass in passive-aggressive warfare. She'd somehow transformed from my loving sister into someone I barely recognized, calculating, competitive, and seemingly determined to diminish my success at every opportunity. It started with small slights that I initially brushed off as wedding stress. When our cousin Jennifer got engaged and asked me to plan her wedding at Sunset Ridge, Sarah made a point of telling everyone at the engagement party how rustic and basic desert venues were becoming. When I was invited to speak at the Arizona Wedding Professionals Association about veteran entrepreneurship, Sarah conveniently scheduled her bachelorette party the same weekend, then acted hurt when I chose my professional commitment over her festivities. But the real escalation began when Marcus's mother, Patricia Westbrook, entered the picture. Patricia was Phoenix society royalty, old money country club board member, and someone who measured people's worth by their social connections and bank accounts. She took an immediate dislike to me, probably because I represented everything she considered beneath her family's standards. During a supposedly casual family barbecue in March, Patricia cornered me by the pool while everyone else was inside watching a basketball game. Her smile was sharp as a knife. "So, Rachel, Sarah tells me you run some sort of outdoor catering business," I corrected her politely. "Actually, I own several event venues. We handle everything from intimate ceremonies to large corporate retreats." "How interesting." Her tone suggested it was anything but. "I suppose there's always a market for budget options. Not everyone can afford the finer establishments after all." The dismissal was clear, but I maintained my composure. "We actually command premium pricing in our market segment. Our clients choose us for the unique experience and exceptional service." Patricia's laugh was crystalline and cold. "Of course, dear. I'm sure you do very well with your niche clientele." What happened next still makes my blood boil. Sarah appeared beside us, having apparently been listening from inside the sliding door. Patricia, you should see some of Rachel's venues, Sarah said, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope that she might defend me. They're perfect for people who want that whole roughing it outdoor experience. Very Instagram friendly for the younger crowd. The way she said it made my military-grade venue sound like a glorified camping trip. Patricia's expression brightened with malicious delight. Oh, how clever, like glamping but for weddings. What a creative business model. I excused myself before I said something I'd regret, but the damage was done. Sarah had actively participated in belittling my life's work, and she'd done it with a smile on her face. The situation deteriorated further when I discovered Sarah had been actively discouraging our relatives from booking with Desert Rose events. My cousin's wedding had been scheduled for Sunset Ridge in June, but suddenly Jennifer called to cancel, sounding awkward and apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Rachel. Family politics, you know. Sarah thinks it might be weird to have two family weddings at the same venue, and Marcus's family has some concerns about the accessibility for older guests." It was a lie, and we both knew it. Sunset Ridge was completely ADA compliant. I'd made sure of that from day one. But Jennifer had clearly been pressured, and I could read between the lines about who was behind it. The final straw came 3 weeks before Sarah's wedding. I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner when Sarah made an announcement that changed everything. "We've decided to add a +1 restriction to the wedding," she said, casually cutting into her steak as if she were discussing the weather. "The venue has some capacity limitations, so we're limiting it to married couples and long-term relationships only." I looked up from my plate confused. "Okay, that's pretty standard. I'll just bring Jake." Jake was a guy I'd been dating for about 6 months, a fellow veteran who ran his own construction company. Sarah's smile was sickeningly sweet. "Actually, Rachel, we've decided that 6 months doesn't really qualify as long-term. We're thinking more like 2 years minimum. For the integrity of the celebration, you understand." My parents exchanged worried glances. The arbitrary nature of the rule was obvious. Sarah was specifically targeting me, and everyone at the table knew it. "Sarah," my mother said carefully, "that seems a bit harsh. Rachel's been seeing Jake for—" "It's fine," Sarah interrupted. "Rachel understands. She can come solo. Unless—" She paused dramatically, her eyes glittering with malice. "Unless she'd prefer to skip the wedding altogether. I know how busy she is with her little business." The word little hit like a slap. In that moment I realized that everything I'd built, every success I'd achieved would always be minimized in Sarah's eyes because she couldn't stand the idea that her younger sister had accomplished something significant. But it was what happened next that sealed my sister's fate. Marcus, who'd been quiet throughout dinner, suddenly spoke up. "Actually, babe, maybe we should reconsider the whole guest list situation. I mean, do we really want someone who runs a budget desert venue representing our families? My mother's friends are going to be there, and first impressions matter." Sarah's nod of agreement was the knife twist that finished our relationship. "Marcus has a point," she said, looking directly at me. "This wedding is really important to our future, and we need to surround ourselves with people who understand that. Maybe it would be better if you sat this one out, Rachel. Just to avoid any awkwardness." The silence that followed was deafening. My parents looked horrified. Even Tom, who'd never liked me, seemed shocked by the cruelty of what had just happened. I stood up slowly, my napkin falling to the floor. "Are you uninviting me from your wedding, Sarah? I'm giving you an out," she replied, her voice steady. "This is bigger than family drama. This is about our future social standing in Phoenix." That night I went home and stared at my laptop screen for 3 hours. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, to swallow my pride and show up anyway. But another part of me, the part that had learned in the military that respect is earned and that some lines should never be crossed, was already formulating a plan. Sarah had made it clear that my success meant nothing to her, that my place in the family was conditional on staying small and unthreatening. She'd chosen social climbing over sibling loyalty. It was time to show her exactly what my little business was capable of. The revelation came to me at 2 in the morning, while I was lying awake staring at the ceiling and replaying every cruel word from dinner. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant Emma about a venue booking inquiry, and that's when it hit me like a lightning bolt. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the booking system for Desert Rose events. My fingers trembling with anticipation, I searched through our venue database by date and location. What I found made me laugh out loud in the darkness of my bedroom, a laugh that probably sounded slightly unhinged, but I didn't care. There it was, in black and white. Sunset Ridge was booked for Saturday, May 15th. The client listed was Westbrook Martinez wedding, Sarah's wedding, at my venue. But here's the kicker: the booking hadn't been made directly through me. It had come through a third-party wedding planner, Elegant Affairs Phoenix, with whom we had a standing contract. The planner, Monica Stevens, was someone I'd worked with dozens of times, but she clearly had no idea that Sarah Martinez was my sister. I sat there in stunned silence, piecing together what had obviously happened. After rejecting my offer months ago, Sarah and Marcus had apparently struggled to find their prestigious venue. The Phoenician was booked. The country clubs were either unavailable or too expensive even for Marcus's family, and the other high-end venues in Phoenix were similarly occupied. In their desperation, they'd hired Monica to find them something exclusive for their date. Monica, being the professional she was, had immediately thought of Sunset Ridge. To her, it was the perfect solution: a beautiful, exclusive venue with availability on their exact date. She'd probably sold it to them as a hidden gem and a best-kept secret in the Phoenix wedding scene. The irony was delicious. Looking at the contract details, I could see that they were paying top dollar. No family discount, no special considerations. They'd booked the full premium package, including the chapel reception area and my most expensive catering partner. The total was nearly $60,000. My sister, who'd called my venue basic and rustic, who'd uninvited me from her wedding because she was embarrassed by my budget business, was paying me a fortune to host her dream wedding. And she had absolutely no idea. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt a cold, calculating calm settle over me. This wasn't just about getting even anymore. This was about teaching a lesson that would stick. I picked up my phone and called Jake. He answered on the third ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Rachel, it's 2:30 in the morning. Everything okay, Jake? You still have connections with the National Guard training programs, right?" There was a pause. "Yeah, why? What's going on? How would you like to help me teach my sister about respect?" Over the next hour, I explained the situation to Jake, who listened with growing amazement and what I could only describe as professional admiration. You see, Jake wasn't just any construction worker. He was a former Marine drill instructor who now ran survival training programs for corporate team-building events. His company, Desert Warrior Training, specialized in intense outdoor experiences that pushed people to their limits. "So, let me get this straight," Jake said, his voice now fully awake and engaged. "Your sister kicked you out of her wedding, but she's having it at your venue without knowing you own it." "That's exactly right. And you want to." "What, cancel on her last minute?" "Oh no," I said, my voice steady and determined. "I want to give her exactly what she asked for." She said my venue wasn't sophisticated enough for her social climbing needs. She wanted me out of her life because I was embarrassing. "Well, I'm going to make sure her wedding is absolutely unforgettable." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Not just chuckling, but full-blown belly-deep laughter that went on for almost a minute. "Rachel Martinez," he said when he finally caught his breath, "you are diabolical, and I am absolutely here for this. What do you need?" This is where the story gets really interesting, and I can see by the comments that you're all as invested in this family drama as I was living it. If you're wondering how this revenge plan unfolds, make sure you're subscribed because the next part is where things get absolutely wild. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when military precision meets wedding planning chaos. The plan I hatched over the next week was beautiful in its simplicity and devastating in its execution. I would honor Sarah's contract to the letter. She would get her venue, her date, and her wedding. But she would also get a very special surprise that would teach her exactly what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. First, I confirmed with Monica Stevens that everything was on track for the Westbrook Martinez wedding. I played the role of the professional venue owner, asking all the right questions about setup times, vendor access, and guest count. Monica had no idea she was booking my sister's wedding at my venue, and I saw no reason to enlighten her. The bride is quite particular, Monica warned me during our call. She's very focused on the social aspects of the event. Lots of prominent Phoenix families will be attending. Of course, I replied smoothly. We'll make sure everything is perfect. Absolutely unforgettable. Next, I reached out to my friend Captain Rodriguez, who ran weekend warrior training programs for the Arizona National Guard. Rodriguez and I had served together in Afghanistan, and he owed me a favor from when I'd helped coordinate logistics for a training exercise that had gone sideways. Martinez, he boomed when he answered my call. Good to hear from you. What can I do for you, Rodriguez? How would you like to run a special training exercise next weekend? I've got the perfect venue, and I guarantee it'll be more memorable than anything you've done before. The pieces were falling into place beautifully. Sarah wanted sophistication and social status. She was about to get a lesson in both, along with a master class in the consequences of family betrayal. But I wasn't done yet. The final piece of my plan required calling in one more favor, this one from someone Sarah would never see coming. Someone who knew exactly how to handle entitled people who thought they were better than everyone else. As I made that last phone call, I felt a sense of calm satisfaction that I hadn't experienced since this whole mess started. Sarah had taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, and that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most willing to stab you in the back. Now it was time to teach her that actions have consequences and that underestimating your little sister's budget desert venue might be the biggest mistake of your privileged life. Friday night before the wedding, I was at Sunset Ridge overseeing the final preparations. To any outside observer, everything looked perfect for Sarah's dream wedding. The chapel was decorated with white roses and desert sage. The reception area was set with elegant linens and crystal, and the catering team had arrived to prep for the next day's festivities. Monica Stevens was bustling around with her clipboard, ensuring every detail met her exacting standards. Rachel, this place truly is magical. The bride is going to be absolutely thrilled. I smiled, thinking about how very Instagram-worthy tomorrow's photos were going to be. Oh, I guarantee this will be a wedding no one will ever forget. As the sun set over the Sonoran Desert, casting everything in golden light, I made my final calls. Captain Rodriguez confirmed that his training unit would arrive at 0600 hours. Jake's Desert Warrior training team was ready with their equipment. And my secret weapon, Sergeant Major Patricia Hayes, the most intimidating drill instructor the Army had ever produced, was flying in from Fort Benning specifically for tomorrow's festivities. You see, Patricia Hayes wasn't just any drill sergeant. She was the woman who'd trained me during my most challenging military exercises, and she had a particular gift for humbling people who thought they were better than everyone else. When I'd called her and explained the situation, her response had been immediate and enthusiastic. Martinez, your sister sounds like every entitled college kid I've ever had to break down and build back up. Count me in. It's been too long since I've had a good challenge. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear with perfect weather for an outdoor wedding. At exactly 6 a.m., as Sarah was presumably getting her hair done at some expensive Phoenix salon, Captain Rodriguez's convoy arrived at Sunset Ridge. Within 30 minutes, my beautiful wedding venue had been transformed into a military training ground. Obstacle courses appeared where the cocktail area had been. Mud pits replaced the pristine desert landscaping I'd spent years cultivating. Barbed wire obstacles sprouted around the chapel like thorny flowers. The piece de resistance was the sound system. Instead of romantic acoustic music, the venue now echoed with drill sergeant cadences and military commands. The gentle ambiance I'd carefully created was replaced by the unmistakable sounds of basic training. Monica Stevens arrived at 8 a.m. for the final walkthrough, took one look at the scene and nearly fainted. What? What is this? She stammered, staring at a muddy obstacle course where the dance floor should have been. Where's the wedding setup? The ceremony is in 4 hours. I walked up to her wearing my old army fatigues and combat boots, a clipboard in my hand. Good morning, Monica. Welcome to the Westbrook Martinez Military Training Experience. Training experience, Rachel, this is a wedding. There are 300 guests coming, including some of the most prominent families in Phoenix. And they're all going to get exactly what Sarah ordered, I replied calmly. You see, Monica, there's something the bride didn't mention when she booked this venue. Sarah Martinez is my sister. Monica's face went white. Your sister, but she said. She said a lot of things. She said my venue wasn't sophisticated enough for her social standing. She said I was an embarrassment to the family. She even uninvited me from her own wedding because she was ashamed to be associated with someone who runs a budget desert venue. Understanding dawned in Monica's eyes, followed quickly by panic. Rachel, please, this isn't just about your sister. My reputation, my business, these are important clients. Don't worry, Monica. The venue contract will be honored completely. Sarah will get her wedding, and her guests will get an experience they'll never forget. In fact, I'm confident this will be the most talked about wedding in Phoenix society history. At 10 a.m., Sergeant Major Hayes arrived, and I swear the desert itself seemed to stand at attention. This woman had commanded respect from Marines, Army Rangers, and Navy SEALs. She was about to meet her most challenging assignment, yet Phoenix socialites in designer wedding attire. Martinez, she barked, her voice carrying across the venue. Outstanding setup. These obstacles look like they'll separate the wheat from the chaff real quick. Thank you, Sergeant Major. The bride specifically requested an unforgettable experience for her high society guests. Hayes grinned, and it was not a pleasant sight. Roger that. Let's see how these country club warriors handle some real-world challenges. At noon, the vendors started arriving. The florist took one look at the barbed wire decorating her carefully arranged bouquets and started hyperventilating. The photographer kept asking if this was some kind of themed wedding he hadn't been told about. The string quartet that was supposed to play during the ceremony stood in stunned silence as drill sergeants demonstrated proper push-up form nearby. But my favorite moment came when the catering team arrived. Instead of the elegant hors d'oeuvres Sarah had ordered, they found MRE's meals ready to eat, stacked where the champagne should have been, and a field mess tent where the premium bar was supposed to be set up. Ma'am, the head caterer approached me nervously. There seems to be some kind of mix-up with the menu. No mix-up, I assured him. The bride wanted an authentic experience. You can't get more authentic than military field rations. By 1 p.m. word had gotten back to Sarah. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize, but I knew exactly who was calling. Rachel, Sarah's voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. What the hell is going on at my venue? Hello, Sarah. I'm surprised to hear from you. I thought you didn't want me involved in your wedding. Don't play games with me, Monica just called, crying about drill sergeants and obstacle courses. This is my wedding day. Yes, it is. And it's being held at my venue. You know, the budget desert venue that wasn't sophisticated enough for your social climbing needs. There was a long pause. I could practically hear the pieces clicking together in Sarah's mind. You own Sunset Ridge. I own all of it, Sarah. Desert Rose Events. The venue you rejected because it wasn't good enough for Marcus's family. The venue you're now paying $60,000 to use because it was the only place available for your date. You can't do this. We have a contract. There are 300 people coming. Oh, I'm honoring the contract completely. You're getting the venue, the date, and an absolutely unforgettable experience. I never promised what kind of experience it would be. The line went quiet except for Sarah's heavy breathing. When she spoke again, her voice was dangerously low. If you don't fix this right now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I looked around at the controlled chaos of my military training ground, watched Sergeant Major Hayes putting a group of early arriving groomsmen through jumping jacks and smiled. The only thing I regret, Sarah, is not doing this sooner. At 2:30 p.m., exactly 90 minutes before the scheduled ceremony, a convoy of luxury vehicles descended upon Sunset Ridge like an invasion force. Leading the charge was a white Bentley that I knew belonged to Patricia Westbrook, followed by what looked like half of Phoenix's social elite in their finest wedding attire. I positioned myself at the entrance, still in my military fatigues, with Sergeant Major Hayes at my side and a clipboard full of training schedules in my hand. The sight of these overdressed socialites stepping out of their pristine vehicles into a desert military training ground was better than any revenge fantasy I could have imagined. Sarah emerged from the Bentley like an angry goddess in ivory silk and lace. Her designer wedding dress, which probably cost more than most people's cars, looked absurdly out of place next to the obstacle course behind her. Her face was a mask of fury barely contained by what I assumed was several $100s worth of professional makeup. "Rachel!" she screamed across the parking area, hiking up her wedding dress to storm toward me. "Fix this now." Behind her, I could see Marcus in his custom tuxedo, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Patricia Westbrook followed, her expression promising murder, while a growing crowd of bewildered wedding guests began to gather. "Welcome to Sunset Ridge Military Training Facility," Sergeant Major Hayes announced in her parade ground voice before I could respond. "All personnel will report for equipment issue and safety briefing before participating in today's exercises." Exercises? Patricia Westbrook's voice could have frozen lava. "Young lady, I don't know who you think you are, but this is a wedding, not some ridiculous military parade." Hayes turned to face her with the kind of attention that had made grown Marines weep. "Ma'am, I am Sergeant Major Patricia Hayes, United States Army, and I will conduct today's training as ordered." "You will address me as Sergeant Major or ma'am." I almost felt sorry for Patricia. Almost. Meanwhile, Sarah had reached me, her bouquet clutched in her hands like a weapon. "You psychotic bitch, do you have any idea what you've done? These are the most important people in Phoenix society. Marcus's business partners are here, my boss is here, this is going to ruin everything." "Funny," I replied calmly. "I thought you said my venue wasn't good enough for your sophisticated friends. Looks like you changed your mind pretty quickly when you couldn't find anywhere else." The crowd of guests was growing larger, and I could see phones coming out. In the age of social media, this disaster was going to be documented from every possible angle. Sarah's Instagram perfect wedding was about to become viral for all the wrong reasons. Marcus finally approached, trying to play peacekeeper while tugging at his bow tie like it was choking him. "Rachel, look, I know we got off on the wrong foot, but surely we can work something out here. Name your price." "My price," I laughed. "Marcus, you already paid my price. $60,000. Remember? The full premium package for this exclusive venue experience. This is insane." Patricia Westbrook had recovered enough to join the argument. "Sarah, who is this person? How does she have authority here?" "Mrs. Westbrook," I said with exaggerated politeness. "Allow me to introduce myself properly. I'm Rachel Martinez, owner of Desert Rose Events and this venue. You might remember me from the barbecue where you called my business budget catering and suggested it was perfect for people who couldn't afford finer establishments." The recognition dawned on Patricia's face, followed by something that might have been respect or fear. That's when my parents' car pulled up. Mom and Dad stepped out, took one look at the chaos, and I saw my father's shoulders shake with what I realized was suppressed laughter. "Rachel Marie Martinez, my mother," said, walking over in her mother of the bride dress. "What exactly is going on here?" Before I could answer, Sarah whirled on our parents. "Mom, Dad, make her stop this. She's ruining my wedding on purpose." Dad looked around at the obstacle course, the drill sergeants, and the growing crowd of overdressed socialites, then back at Sarah. "Honey, didn't you uninvite your sister from this wedding?" "That's not the point. Actually," Dad said quietly, "I think that's exactly the point." This was when Sergeant Major Hayes decided to take control of the situation. She stepped into the center of our family argument and addressed the entire crowd in a voice that could be heard in orbit. "Attention. All wedding participants will now receive their training assignments. This is a military-style team-building exercise designed to test character resilience and cooperation under pressure. The crowd of wedding guests looked around in bewilderment. Several of Marcus's business associates were already backing toward their cars. "This is a joke," Wright called out someone I recognized as a Phoenix City councilman. "Where's the real ceremony?" Sir Hayes replied. "This is the real ceremony." The bride specifically requested an authentic outdoor experience that would challenge her guests and create lasting memories. I watched Sarah's face cycle through about 17 different expressions as she realized what was happening. Her elaborate social climbing wedding was about to become a mud-covered obstacle course adventure, and there wasn't a thing she could do about it legally. "You can't force our guests to do this," Marcus protested. "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "Anyone who doesn't want to participate is welcome to leave. The parking lot is right there." That's when the exodus began. About half the guest list, including most of Marcus's important business contacts and Patricia's society friends, made immediate beelines for their vehicles. The sound of luxury car engines starting filled the desert air like a symphony of entitled retreat. But here's what I hadn't expected: about 40 people stayed. These included my parents, several of Sarah's real friends from college, some of Marcus's more adventurous relatives, and even a few of the society folks who apparently had senses of humor. "Well," announced my college-aged cousin Tyler, loosening his tie, "this is definitely going to be more interesting than another boring wedding reception." Sarah stood in the middle of the chaos, her perfect wedding dress already gathering dust, watching her social climbing dreams collapse around her like a house of cards in a windstorm. "Last chance, Sarah," I called out to her. "You can still have your wedding. Just not the one you planned." What happened next surprised everyone, including me. Sarah stood there for a long moment, her designer dress billowing in the desert wind, looking around at the remaining guests, the military obstacles, and the absolute shambles of her social climbing dreams. Then she started laughing. Not hysterical laughter. Genuine deep belly laughs that seemed to come from somewhere she'd buried long ago. She laughed so hard she had to hold on to Marcus for support, and tears started streaming down her professionally made-up face. "Oh my God," she gasped between laughs, "I can't believe you actually did this." My little sister turned my wedding into military boot camp. The crowd was silent, unsure whether Sarah was having a breakdown or an epiphany. "You know what the really crazy part is?" Sarah continued, wiping her eyes and smearing her mascara. "This is exactly something I would have thought was hilarious before I became so obsessed with impressing people who don't actually care about me." She looked around at the guests who had fled, then at the ones who had stayed. "Look at that. Half our important guest list couldn't handle one unexpected moment. But Tyler over there is already taking off his jacket to try the rope climb." Marcus, however, was not finding anything amusing about the situation. "Sarah, what are you talking about? This is a disaster. My mother's friends all left. The photographer is getting pictures of you covered in dust. This is going to be all over social media." "Yeah," Sarah said, looking directly at me for the first time that day. Really looking at me, not through me, or around me. "It probably will be. And you know what? Maybe that's exactly what I deserve." She walked over to me, hiking up her wedding dress. "Rachel, I owe you an apology. Actually, I owe you about 100 apologies. I wasn't ready for this. I'd prepared for tears, tantrums, threats, and legal action. I hadn't prepared for my sister to be my sister again. Sarah. No, let me say this." She took a deep breath. "I became someone I don't even recognize. When you started succeeding instead of being proud of my amazing little sister, I felt threatened. Like your success somehow made me less successful. Like there wasn't room for both of us to do well." The crowd around us had gone completely quiet, even Sergeant Major Hayes was listening intently. "Then I met Marcus's family and got caught up in this whole social status thing. I convinced myself that what you did wasn't real success because it wasn't the kind of success they valued. I turned into exactly the kind of person I used to make fun of." Patricia Westbrook chose that moment to interject. Sarah dear, perhaps we should discuss this privately. No. Sarah's voice was firm. Mrs. Westbrook, with all due respect, you and your social circle can go straight to hell. My sister built something amazing from nothing, and instead of celebrating that, I let you convince me to be ashamed of her. The look on Patricia's face was priceless. Marcus looked like he was about to be sick. Sarah turned back to me. I was wrong, Rachel. About everything. Your venues are incredible. Your business is incredible. And I was an absolute monster to uninvite you from my own wedding because I was embarrassed by the family member I should have been most proud of. I felt tears starting in my own eyes. Sarah, this whole thing got way out of hand. Did it? Because looking around here, this is actually perfect. She gestured at the obstacle course, the remaining guests who were now chatting and laughing among themselves, and the absolute chaos of the situation. This is real. This is authentic. This is actually us. That's when Tyler called out from near the rope climb. So, are we doing this military wedding thing, or what? Because I've been working out for months and I'm ready to show off. Sarah looked at me, then at Sergeant Major Hayes. Then at the ridiculous obstacle course that had replaced her dream wedding. You know what? Let's do it. Let's have the weirdest wedding Phoenix has ever seen. What followed was 3 hours of the most unconventional wedding ceremony in Arizona history. Sarah got married in a mud-stained dress after completing an obstacle course with her groom. The wedding photos featured the bride and groom doing push-ups with their wedding party. Instead of a first dance, we had a team-building exercise that left everyone covered in desert dirt and laughing hysterically. Marcus, to his credit, eventually got into the spirit of things, though I suspect that was mostly because Sarah made it clear his choice was participate or find his own way home. The best part was watching the remaining guests. Instead of the stuffy formal affair Sarah had originally planned, people were actually talking to each other, helping each other through obstacles and having genuine fun. My parents couldn't stop smiling. Even some of Marcus's relatives admitted it was the most memorable wedding they'd ever attended. By sunset, we were all sitting around a campfire that Jake's team had set up, still in our muddy formal wear, eating MREs and sharing stories. Sarah was curled up against my side like we used to do when we were kids. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I'm sorry too, I whispered back. I could have handled this differently. No, she said firmly. I needed this. I needed to remember who I actually am under all that social climbing bullshit. 6 months later, Sarah and Marcus renewed their vows, this time with a proper ceremony at Sunset Ridge planned by me with family and real friends in attendance. Patricia Westbrook was notably absent and none of us missed her. The whole experience taught me something important about family success and revenge. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who hurt us deepest, but that doesn't mean the love isn't real underneath all the pain. Sometimes a relationship has to be completely destroyed before it can be rebuilt on a foundation that's actually solid. My little desert venue ended up getting featured in magazines as the site of Phoenix's most unconventional wedding. Bookings tripled. Sarah quit her marketing job and joined Desert Rose Events as my business partner. And Marcus, he actually turned out to be a decent guy once he got away from his mother's toxic influence. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't always about making someone pay. Sometimes it's about forcing them to remember who they really are underneath all the pretenses. So here's my question for all of you. Have you ever had a family member turn against your success out of jealousy? How did you handle it? Was there ever a moment where family loyalty trumped everything else, or did you have to learn the hard way that blood doesn't always guarantee support? Drop your stories in the comments. I love reading about how other families navigate these complicated dynamics. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this wild ride, subscribe for more family drama stories, and share this with anyone who's ever dealt with a toxic family member who tried to dim their shine. Life has a funny way of teaching us exactly who deserves a place at our table, and sometimes the lessons come with mud, barbed wire, and drill sergeants. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, Success is the best revenge, but sometimes a little creativity in how you serve that success makes it taste even sweeter. Here's to building the life you want and surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your wins instead of trying to tear them down.